Did you know that when Rise of Skywalker hit theaters, it was a jarring departure from everything fans had come to expect from the Skywalker saga? The film's decision to undo critical choices from The Last Jedi undermined the entire character arc of Rey. Then there's, of course, Palpatine. The rushed, incoherent plot filled with contrived MacGuffins and a finale that seemed to retcon years of careful storytelling. Never mind the film's human subplots that were weakened by forced relationships and shallow character moments, and its overstuffed action sequences left little room for genuine stakes or emotional resonance. The final installment of the sequel trilogy left audiences scratching their heads and mourning the promises of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. So, before we dissect The Rise of Skywalker piece by piece, a real quick ask that if you're new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to hit that subscribe button now. It's one small click for you, but a huge deal for us. Now, let's break down what went wrong with this final polarizing entry in the Star Wars saga. Reason number 1. Undoing The Last Jedi. One of the most significant blows delivered by The Rise of Skywalker was its decision to undo key narrative choices made in The Last Jedi. In that film, director Rian Johnson dared to take risks, but in The Rise of Skywalker, those hard-won innovations are systematically erased. The film retcons Rey's mysterious parentage with an abrupt reveal that seems more like a convenient plot device than a natural evolution of her character. What had been established as a journey of self-discovery becomes undermined by the sudden imposition of an inherited legacy that never really belonged to her. This decision not only invalidates the emotional resonance of her struggle, but also fractures the internal logic of the new trilogy. Critics and fans alike have argued that this reversal betrays the spirit of The Last Jedi, stripping away the nuance and risk that made it stand out, instead of embracing the idea that hope might be found in unexpected places. The Rise of Skywalker opts for a simplistic solution, one that panders to nostalgia and ignores the complexity of its own narrative groundwork. In doing so, it leaves audiences feeling robbed of the innovative storytelling that once breathed life into the Skywalker legacy. Reason number 2. Cheap plot devices. Another major point of contention in The Rise of Skywalker is the resurrection of Emperor Palpatine. Throughout the sequel trilogy, Palpatine's absence allowed the story to explore new conflicts and develop fresh dynamics. Yet his sudden reappearance undermines the emotional journey of the characters and the internal consistency of the saga. Palpatine's return is handled with all the subtlety of a flying brick hitting a neon billboard. Rather than building up his legacy or exploring forces that could have brought him back, the film simply drops him back into the narrative as if it was always meant to be there. This undercuts the hard work that was put into establishing the stakes of the conflict in the previous films. Critics have argued that this move strips away the nuance from the saga, reducing a once formidable villain to a mere plot device. By relying on Palpatine's iconic status, rather than integrating his return into a carefully constructed narrative framework, The Rise of Skywalker risks trivializing the very essence of the original films. In a universe where every twist is supposed to feel both shocking and inevitable, the Emperor's resurrection comes off as forced and contrived. Reason number 3. A narrative in crisis. At its core, The Rise of Skywalker suffers from a narrative that feels both rushed and incoherent. The plot is crammed with too many MacGuffins and contrived resolutions that leave more questions than answers. The film appears to be in a desperate hurry to tie up loose ends, resulting in a story that leaps from one set piece to the next without providing the necessary breathing room for its characters to actually resonate. From the very beginning, the film struggles under the weight of its own ambition. It tries to juggle multiple storylines, simultaneously undoing the revelations of The Last Jedi, introducing new characters with little development, and forcing together disparate plot threads that never seem to connect. This frantic pace leaves the narrative feeling fragmented and superficial. Important plot points are resolved in mere minutes, without the build-up or tension needed to make them meaningful. Moreover, the film's pacing is relentless in a way that undermines its potential for dramatic impact. In the quest to resolve everything before the final showdown, the movie never allows its characters or the audience to fully digest the stakes of the conflict. This overstuffed narrative results in a final act that feels both unsatisfying and rushed. A conclusion that, rather than offering catharsis, leaves viewers with the impression that the story was hurriedly stitched together. Reason number 4. The retcon that ruined the saga. Perhaps the most jarring aspect of The Rise of Skywalker is its ending. In an attempt to wrap up the sprawling Skywalker saga, the film delivers an ending that undoes years of carefully established character arcs and narrative themes, leaving fans with a sense of betrayal. The film's conclusion is riddled with contrivances, Rey's victory, for instance, is achieved with a simplicity that belies the gravity of her journey. Rather than earning her triumph through hard-won struggle, the film opts for an overly convenient resolution that undermines the emotional stakes of the entire trilogy. This retconning of Rey's arc, combined with the sudden, unearned transformation of Kylo Ren, leaves the audience feeling that the film has simply erased the progress made in earlier installments. Furthermore, the ending's treatment of legacy is particularly problematic. The hopeful conclusion of Return of the Jedi, with the Rebel Alliance's hard-fought victory and a sense of renewed possibility, is effectively nullified by the resurrection of the Emperor and the implication that the cycle of conflict will continue unabated. In essence, The Rise of Skywalker suggests that no matter what, the dark forces of the past are destined to return, a notion that strips the saga of any hard-won optimism. The contrived nature of the ending is compounded by a barrage of recycled dialogue, predictable plot twists, and a frantic pacing that leaves little room for reflection. Reason number 5. Missing emotional core. Another major flaw of The Rise of Skywalker lies in how it treats its characters. In trying to please a wide audience and cram in as much nostalgic fan service as it can, the film neglects the careful character development that made the predecessors compelling. Take, for example, the sidelining of characters like Rose Tico, whose story is all but erased in favor of rapid plot advancements. The bond between Rey and Poe is forced, lacking the organic chemistry and heartfelt camaraderie that earlier films established. Similarly, new characters, such as Zori Bliss and Jannah, are introduced without any proper context or development, serving as little more than plot devices to dispel lingering rumors or to add a veneer of diversity to the cast. Even the transformation of Kylo Ren seems abrupt and unearned. His shift from a conflicted antagonist to a redeemed figure is handled with such haste that it undermines the complex journey he was meant to undergo. This not only weakens his character, but also erodes the emotional resonance of his relationships with Rey and the other members of the Resistance. Critics have pointed out that the human element in The Rise of Skywalker is sorely lacking. The film's characters, who should be the heart and soul of the story, are instead relegated to the background, overshadowed by a relentless focus on spectacle and action. Reason number 6. Lack of stakes. For a saga that once balanced cosmic battles with deeply personal stakes, The Rise of Skywalker stumbles by failing to establish a sense of genuine, lasting threat. One of the core issues is that the threat is both recycled and underdeveloped. Instead of building on the intricate power struggles and moral complexities of the previous films, the movie opts for a series of predictable, low-impact confrontations. The climactic battles, meant to be the emotional and narrative apex of the trilogy, are instead rushed and diluted by overfamiliar tropes and a pacing that leaves little room for suspense. This leads to a scenario where the audience is left wondering if the stakes were ever truly high, or if everything is just another step in a predetermined and uninspired cycle. Furthermore, the film's emphasis on spectacle over substance means that the human cost of the conflict is largely glossed over. In earlier entries, the struggle against overwhelming odds was portrayed with palpable tension, as characters faced not only physical danger but also the emotional weight of their choices. In The Rise of Skywalker, however, the focus on rapid-fire set-pieces and constant action leaves little space for these meaningful moments. The threat of the Empire, or more accurately, the resurrected Emperor, feels abstract and detached, lacking the visceral impact that made the original rebellion feel heroic. Reason number 7. A rushed, recycled fan service. Perhaps the most pervasive problem with The Rise of Skywalker is its relentless, breakneck pacing designed to cram in as much nostalgic fan service as possible rather than allowing the story and its characters to breathe. The film's reliance on fan service is glaring. Instead of daring to chart a new course or explore fresh thematic ground, The Rise of Skywalker rehashes familiar tropes and recycled dialogue, seemingly in a desperate bid to appease a nostalgic audience. The film is peppered with callbacks to earlier entries in the saga, from familiar visual cues to lines of dialogue that echo past glories, but rather than feeling like a loving tribute or homage, these moments come off as heavy-handed and contrived. This overemphasis on fan service, combined with an excruciatingly rapid pace, creates a disjointed viewing experience. New characters are introduced and then quickly sidelined. Plot threads are dropped without explanation, and the film's emotional beats are drowned out by the constant barrage of action. It's as if the filmmakers are so intent on delivering a complete Star Wars experience that they've sacrificed any coherence and depth along the way. But hey, that's just our opinion. What did you think? Was The Rise of Skywalker really that bad? Or was it just J.J. Abrams trying to patch up what he wanted to do in the first place? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's most ambitious films and their missteps. This video is made by movie fans, for movie fans.